Welcome to the Log Time Podcast. The fall 2019 season had everything. Beasts, assassins, Vikings, you name it, it's here. We run the whole gamut of Tesla fossils and average abilities to getting down to the harder plot and production points of shows like Stars Align. And it's balls in your court, y'all. Get in here. Your roommates are lovely ambient sound.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to wait a little longer there just to make sure that we had some decent silence since your roommates were interjecting.
It's okay. It's fine.
They just came upstairs.
Well, they keep hearing you drop things.
They're trying to see if you're not dead.
I hope Matt's okay. It sounds like he's fighting somebody in there.
Only the ghost of Christmas past. Because Christmas is past.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. It is definitely done and gone. Along with
fall anime?
This past... Yeah, all anime is gone.
No, I said fall anime, not all anime.
I heard all anime.
No, I heard all anime. I was like, wow, that is a declaration right here.
No, I said fall anime.
This is the last season. Yes. Matt's done with it. Everything's done now.
Anime's just over. I declare anime is canceled. We're done.
Guys, we didn't want to say anything until we put out our anniversary post, but we're done. It's axed.
Miyazaki was right. Anime is dead.
This anime was a mistake.
Yes, it was. God, Kyle.
You can't even get it right. Oh my God, this is why we're quitting.
Oh my God.
It's an incorrect quote anyways. What are you getting mad at me for?
You're getting wrong.
You're getting the meme wrong. No, that's even a bigger crime than being factually incorrect.
Yeah, this is the anime community. It's all about the memes.
And
I would argue it's not about substance.
It's about memes and, actuallys while you push up your glasses. Got it.
Sorry.
Okay, alright. Yeah, the fall anime season is over. The holidays have passed. I didn't end up finishing as many series from the fall season as I kind of figured I would. Like, I don't know. There were a couple that just really gripped me over the course of the season, and there were a lot that had some strong opening episodes that just, like, I don't know, didn't really sink their teeth into me much. Is that, like, am I the only one, or?
So, here's what I think. So, fall 2019, I feel like there were a lot of shows that had, like, a lot of, like, really good first episodes, and then, like, just kind of, like, or at least, like, maybe not even first episodes, maybe just, like, good beginnings, like, good starts, even, which is, you know, a little bit different than what we see, like, in most anime with just, like, one good episode. There was, like, several in a row, which is good.
Yeah.
But I also feel like a lot of those anime just didn't, like, hold up or didn't grab attention or something.
Yeah.
Like, look at anime like, I know you talked about this at the beginning of the podcast, Zach. Not this podcast, but the
last one.
Yeah, the seasonal one. No Gun's Life.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to that? Like, I didn't hear anything about that show. What happened?
Yeah, and that's just the wildest thing, because here's the thing. I love No Gun's Life. I fully intend to watch it, but I think part of it is just that the fall season kind of unfortunately has the burden on it in that it is completely surrounded, like, for maybe its last third by the holiday season here in, you know
everywhere
in a lot of places, more or less.
Honestly.
Like mid-November through the whole of December is just good fucking luck, dude. If you somehow don't have shit to do, congratulations. But, like, No Gun's Life, Cautious Hero, a couple others, I loved the first few episodes I watched of them. But there were really only a couple shows that, you know, came out week by week that I sat down and was like, okay, it's X day. I have a new episode of this. Let's turn it on. And I don't think that that's necessarily, like, because of any detriment of, to go back to your question, Matt, No Gun's Life, but
and maybe it's, and going back to what you said, I think maybe that's just a victim of the fall season in general.
Yeah,
like,
it's just timing.
The other seasons don't have that competition. Even winter season, like, honestly, maybe that's why winter season people are always excited for winter. Maybe it's more than just a turn of the new year, but
Maybe.
it's like maybe it's just a holidays thing. Like, it's all done. People have less to do.
Yeah, but also, like, look at it this way. So you said you heard no one talking about it this season.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't see anything. There probably
Yeah,
are people
okay.
talking about it, but I didn't see anything.
But, like, consider for a moment that this season we had Boku no Hero Academia 4th season.
Which I didn't
We
really hear
had
much about either, but yeah.
We heard SAO Alicization.
I've heard
the
more about
new,
that, but yeah.
Yeah, the new season of Seven Deadly Sins was out. We got a new season of Shokugeki no Soma. I mean, there's fucking Beastars, which everyone and their grandmother was, hyped about. We had a new season of, We Never
I blame that
Learn.
one on Netflix, but yeah.
Also, Pocket
Yeah, there's-
Monsters.
Yeah, there was a fucking new season of Fate Grand Order.
Okay, I heard a little bit about that, but yeah. Maybe it's just a low volume season. Not low volume as in like anime number, but like low volume as in like people aren't speaking their voice.
Oh,
Maybe,
okay.
yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible. I don't know. Like, I don't. It's always kind of just a weird, sticky thing to try to consider when you're like, well, why isn't X thing being talked about? And I mean, like, let's be real. Most
I
of
don't think
the-
it really matters what's being talked about
Yeah.
or not, but because I mean,
It's-
let's be honest. On this podcast, we just watch what we watch anyway. So
I mean, pretty solidly.
Well, I
Is-
also think it doesn't help that during the Christmas time is a big time whenever other pieces of media are coming out. Every movie under the sun is like coming out, getting towards Christmas, and then you have a whole bunch of TV shows that are hitting Netflix and a bunch of other places. So, anime may not be the number one thing on some people's lists.
that might be true, but I also feel like that there's some big anime nerds out there that I still didn't really hear much from. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I
Probably
mean,
a combination
just
of stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, it's okay. This podcast isn't about like why people aren't talking about whatever. Though.
It's about what we
No.
watched.
Yeah,
This is,
it's about
this
what
is
we
not
watched.
about the discourse.
There's no discourse. That was a self-generated discourse on our part. Unless you watched Jet Girls, then fuck you. But
Jet Girls? Okay, no, never mind. I'm not gonna ask. We're not
No.
gonna get sidetracked.
no,
we have our
we
shit
gotten
to do.
sidetracked enough. Let's go.
Yes. Is anyone like really chomping at the bit to talk about one of the shows that they watched this season?
I mean, I have one that I can knock
so
out real quick.
that is.
You
sound
I feel
really
like I feel like you say
enthusiastic.
that every podcast. Let me guess. It's
All right.
probably average abilities, huh?
Okay.
It is. But not for
How
the reasons
about-
you think.
Okay. How about I'll start with something interesting so we're high energy?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Because maybe going in with like this is okay. As
Thank you.
is that
Yes.
really the tone that we want to set here at the Backloggers?
It's the tone that we've set in the past.
Hit me, hit me with that one.
Anyway,
well, it's
let's just go, Zach.
yeah. Vinland Saga finished up this season.
Yeah.
Technically, it started summer season. It was a 2-core, but it finished in the fall. I think that Vinland Saga is maybe one of my favorite anime I've literally ever seen ever. After I finished the season, I had to go read the manga. Because I tried watching some other stuff, and I just could not focus because all I could fucking think about was Vinland Saga. I cannot tell you the last time that a series has captivated me this much. It's
Wow.
absolutely stunning. Did we talk about it at all in like the summer beginning cast?
We-
It feels
we
like so
touched on
long
it.
ago.
We
I
touched
think
on
we
it.
touched
Yeah.
on it, like, because I think you were I don't know. I only saw one episode.
I saw 2, I think, but yeah, I hadn't seen that much.
So I think when we had talked about that, we would have watched maybe about 3 episodes or so.
Yep.
By we, I mean the royal we, and I'm just talking about myself here.
So, I want you to give me one reason why, just give me one reason, like, to watch the show. If you could pick one thing out of the show that just stands out above everything else, what is it? Okay,
It is
I realize
the-
it's all integrated, but
Mhm. No, yeah.
loaded question, but whatever.
Again, one reason to really work with this is the fact that has this consistent juxtaposition of the radical violence of Viking tribes and this push for and discussion of, you know, the nature of life, of Viking culture, and whether or not, you know, violence is really something that should be pursued. I was reading the manga because it just comes out in these fucking massive hardback, like 400 some page tomes.
Oh, really?
Every now and then. Wow. And so, like, after like every chapter or so, there's like a little blurb from the author. And one of the things that mentioned in one of his discussions was that he was really fascinated by this idea of, you know, Viking cultures and how radically violent they were, and also kind of how a lot of shonen series ultimately boil down to, okay, well, these are good guys because they can do violence the best, but they're good. And so he wanted to write a series about, well, what if it's actually not really about that? And what if the good guys are ultimately the ones who can do the least amount of violence?
Oh, so it's kind of a critique on shonen in that way.
I mean, I don't know if it would necessarily like be a critique, but I think the
commentary,
I think just the sheer idea that some dude looked at manga as an industry right now and thought, how can I kind of flip this? I think that in and of itself, it makes this more than worth the watch.
It's like a creative, just like a different creative direction.
Yeah, very
like
much
someone
so.
that looked at, someone that examined it and was like, but what if I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely sells me on it, personally. So.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
Thank
if
you
you're
for
not
sharing
in
that
it,
tidbit, that was rather interesting.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, if that just does not interest you at all, and you just want to watch some wicked cool fight scenes, and you really do not care about thinking or context, it's still got stuff for you too. So, I mean, whatever, it's got something for everyone. But yeah, that would be my reason.
Wow.
Anyway,
that was a very good reason. Wow. Okay. I was not expecting that. All right.
You asked. You gotta be ready to receive.
I did ask. I wanted to know. So.
Okay. So Kyle, now can we do average abilities?
Yeah, it won't take long.
Now that we've set a high energy tone, we can kind of balance it out a little bit.
Yeah, calm down a little bit. Average abilities was actually a lot better of a show than I thought it was going to be, because
it wasn't average. Amazing.
It depends on who you ask. Me, I thought it was above average, but that has a lot more to do with what it decides to do with its characters, because every single episode is basically exactly what you would expect it to be on the surface. It's like, oh, we're gonna have fun as a group of girls and like go adventuring as a guild and like go do fun, very fantasy tropey things. But
sure,
behind it, there's actually this really nice arc of character development for each character and how they slot into this overall group and how they support each other, and I thought that was really nice. And then on top of that, the ending to the series was fucking stupid. And I mean that in the best of ways. It was.
Are we talking like Indro levels of stupid, or are we talking like?
Yeah.
What kind of stupid are we talking about here?
It's probably like Indro levels of stupid, because the whole series was fully aware. Because the entire time, the main character is fully aware that she is being isekai'd, and so she constantly makes references to other isekais. And I appreciate that the referential humor is turned in a way that if you don't get it, that's cool. You're with literally everybody else she talks to, and they think there's something wrong with her. They just really think that there's something wrong. They're like, we have no idea what you're saying. We think you might be having a stroke. I don't know why you're saying this. So it's not based on its referential humor. It kind of like makes fun of you if you know the joke, kind of thing. But yeah, I liked each individual character. I liked the stories that they set to it. Each character actually had a relatively good backstory that was like relatively dark for a very happy-go-lucky series. And then the ending kind of flips the whole thing on its head and asks if it's really even isekai. So
Wait.
Wait, that's a lot
what does
going
that
on.
even mean?
Yeah, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
You gotta unpack
I mean,
that.
it would be spoilers if I did.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we get a brief poll of who in here is gonna watch this?
I mean, it's
Okay, so
it's like-
we've got the answer.
Yeah, so basically what ends up happening is that they go into an ancient ruin and they find hieroglyphs of flying cars and Teslas and a bunch of
I'm
shit.
sorry.
Oh,
Hold on.
my
And
fucking God.
then they find out that the elder dragons, which are the strongest creatures in the entire world, are attempting to uncover ancient artifacts from a previous ancestry that was like even more powerful than anything else, and it's nukes.
Wait, so are you telling me that like we basically have a Jinrui situation going on here, more or less,
Sort of.
where this takes place way after humanity and fantasy shit has taken over?
Sort of. We end up. It gets fucking stupid. We end up in this idea and concept of a multiverse, and the whole reason why
Oh my
anyone
God.
is even. The whole reason why anyone is even isekai'd in the first place is that there's a group of gods that are desperately trying to figure out how to stop the inevitable death of all creation. And so they keep bringing these heroes into other universes to mix it up and see if they can solve the problem.
Fuck this shit.
Oh my God. That might be the greatest ending I've ever heard of for an isekai show.
It was
God.
fucking great.
That's brilliant. Who
And
thought
let me
of
remind
this?
you, this isn't a show where the entire thing is this character just keeps on doing random bullshit, and she's like, "No, I'm average, I swear." When she takes out a fucking elder dragon, like,
Oh my God.
it's
There's a lot going on there apparently.
yeah, and
There
it
is.
ends in a state where I think I would be interested in seeing the manga because it finally gets to the point where literally everybody else in the story is like, okay, you keep saying that it's a family secret every time that we call you on your bullshit. How about we just talk about your bullshit? And then that's what they ended on. Is like, oh no, she has to spill the beans.
All right.
Yeah, no, it was actually pretty enjoyable, but it's enjoyable for reasons you would not expect.
I can't even imagine how you get to that point. That's just
The last, like, 2 episodes were buck wild.
I mean God, I'm still trying to process it.
Yeah.
Like my brain is just going like, what?
I really was not expecting that to be
The climax. Yeah.
the ending of this show was.
See, this is why you don't sleep on the cute girl shows.
I mean, dude, I am not
That's-
even remotely interested.
that's just I feel like that statement was I don't feel like you're completely incorrect, but I also feel like the two statements are not related. Like
Yeah. Okay. Look, it would be one thing.
This could have
if
happened
every
in
cute
anything.
girls. Yeah, it would be one thing if every cute girls doing cute things show ended with something buck wild. Like it would be one thing if we were expected to see like K-On! Was actually leading up to the JFK assassination, or like
someone
know.
make this an anime right now.
or like Eurocamp was about starting brush fires or
Or
something. like that.
Kinaro Mosaic actually did 9/11. Like
Yeah, like it would be one thing if that was the expected case, but I'm not gonna watch every fucking cute girl doing cute things show so I can get a stupid fucking Tesla unboxing from underground.
like-
it's not happening.
It was really
absolutely
weird because
not.
the entire time the show was trying to be self-aware and it did the typical thing of like, ha, isn't it funny that we know what this comes from? And then at the end they're like, ha, isn't it funny that we fucking pulled the wool over your eyes? This isn't even a cute girl show. It's like, wait,
I mean,
what?
okay, but it still is. The fact that it has one moment at the end doesn't negate everything else.
No, but it starts getting... Okay, yeah. No, it seems like if they ever made a season 2, the season 2 would be buck wild. Because, like, all limits are off. They're just gonna go to the nines.
I mean, is it an anime original? Do you know?
It's based off a
it's-
light
it's-
novel.
It's based off a light novel
All right,
series. So.
okay. That's fucking stupid.
I wanted to, man, you just gotta think, like, where's the light novel gonna go from there? Holy shit.
It's kind of like the big secret in Jinrui that I still haven't told you guys because you haven't read the books.
Oh my gosh, yeah, don't tell me. I don't actually want to know that one.
Yeah.
I almost read it one time and I was like, nope. Apparently it's really fucking big, by the way.
It's huge. So, okay, yeah.
Is there anything else huge that you want to hit on for average abilities?
No, I would argue if you're going in for a cute girls do cute things in an isekai, it's straight up your alley. It's very fun. But then on top of that, if you're interested in a cute girls doing cute things and then it gets fucking weird, yeah. There were a couple of moments that I wasn't totally sold on because it was trying to be self-aware. So, like, there was this one thing where, like, you find out that one of the characters is in the middle of a revenge arc, and they literally call her on it, and they're like, wow, revenge arc? How original. I'm like, okay, but, like, really? Her parents fucking died. Why are you being like this? But except for, like, one or two scenes like that, the rest of it is actually pretty good.
Okay. All right. Well,
yeah, that's interesting.
Those shows are still not up my alley, and you're not going to get me to watch them. But I enjoy hearing you talk.
That was a rather interesting turn that I did not expect for that show. So I appreciated the insight there.
It was one of my more favorite things that has happened this season in the shows that I have watched.
Matt, what you got going on, bud?
So I want to talk about Orisuki. Just please let me talk about Orisuki.
Please do.
Please let me.
I need to know.
Okay. Guys, Orisuki... I know we say this every podcast, but Orisuki is a masterpiece of our generation. And I actually mean it this time.
Okay, I was going to say, if you're actually saying that, that has to go up next to Gamers and Glasslit.
Okay.
Like, it's got to go there.
Yeah, it's like, Matt, you can absolutely say that. But we're now in court. Court is in session, and you have to defend this point.
Okay.
Yeah, this is law. Tell us why this is a fucking masterpiece.
Okay.
And I have some context already, but I want to hear your full case.
Okay, so Orisuki is a harem anime, but here's the catch: it is. I don't even know. Like, it's the most self-aware, stupid ass harem anime I've ever seen, and not for any of the reasons like a harem anime would be stupid and to begin with.
So I think the best way to like start out would honestly be to just give us the basic synopsis, because right here in this like 2-word synopsis that I see here, I'm like, okay, now wait a minute. That's
2-word synopsis.
2-word synopsis.
Excuse
me. 2-word synopsis.
It good.
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept.
Which actually that does describe the anime rather well.
Oh my god.
No, but I mean 2-sentence synopsis here. It's like it immediately points out something that's very different, I think, from some other harem animes that I've watched. So.
Okay. Well, so we talked about this a little bit in the first podcast, but basically the whole first episode of Orisuki is a bait and switch. It's to make you think that the main character, Joro-kun, he is a very nice harem anime protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, he's not.
And
basically, so they go through all these motions to try to, like, build him up as a good character and, like, say he's kind to all these girls. And they, like, fall in love with him, but it's, like, he's kind of, like, got this intent in mind that he's, like, trying to make them do that, so...
Doesn't he have, like, a fucking stack of books of, like, how to be a nice guy and shit like that?
Yes. I think I mentioned before one time that it is Nice Guys, the anime, if you've ever been there. But it's a lot more than that, because it starts out, so he gets these confessions, which are all these girls actually love his best friend instead. Oof. Which is nicknamed Sun-chan, which is really funny.
Wait, TSUN?
No.
Okay.
No, like the sun in the sky.
Oh, okay, like the sun in the sky, okay.
Yeah, and that's gonna... I guess I'll just explain it now. So all the girls in the show, like, have these nicknames for flowers. And then we have Sun-chan, which is like the sun in the sky, and then Joro, which is our protagonist. His name actually means watering can. So it's like a there's like a whole no, don't worry, this gets a lot better. Just wait, okay?
Yeah.
So this is like a whole like metaphor they're building here, like with the whole like they really want you to buy into this thing that our protagonist is like trying to get this harem for himself. But after all these confessions happen by these girls, like he realizes that he's like, this is just not working out for me. It actually cuts to a point in the first episode where he's like, I'm a background character now, and the whole thing like goes grayscale, and like he turns into like the literal opposite of what it is in the first half. So he turns into a literal nice guy.
Yep.
Capital N,
Little
capital
R
G.
nice guy.
Yeah. And like it'll like replay like some of the same stuff, like the girl like go and hug him, and he'll be like, she's a fucking bitch, I hate her, and this stuff, like literally. But not only that, like I think that dynamic of just that first arc of just all of this, like we're just uncovering like what this anime is going to be about, because there's another girl that likes him, and she's
there's one girl that likes him,
yes.
not another girl that likes him.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is one girl. That's right. So she is not the greatest person in the world. She's very manipulative. But she's the one that likes him, and he's not okay with it. For obvious reasons, because she stalks him and does other bad things.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt, I thought you liked the yanderes.
Well, okay, we're gonna get to that. Okay.
Oh no! I was just making a joke.
Yeah, hush. Let the master speak.
So this is just—it's such a masterpiece of a show, because literally, I think everyone knows that scene in the first episode where that confession scene. We know it's about to take place, because one thing that Orisuke's really good at is just layering on it actually turns the overused joke of like, it somehow creates a joke, and then it, like normally this would be boring where they throw a joke at you and then they use it and then they like overuse it, right? We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Orisuke somehow manages to make it so that the joke is compounded on each other. Like, so there's this whole thing, like I'm sure you've seen on Twitter with the bench, right? Like,
yep.
So
you might have to explain this to me, because I actually have not seen this.
Okay, so the basic concept is that every time he gets a confession, or he's about to get a confession, the girl takes him over to a bench, sits him down, and does the same dialogue lead into every single time. He actually starts to catch on to this pattern about the second or third time, and he's like, oh my gosh, no, I know what's about to happen. He's like, yeah, I know. You're about to confess to me. He's like, this is a fake out. You like Sun-chan. We know. Oh my god, I hate this. Like, what's my life right now?
Yeah.
Anyway, it has jokes like that are just like compounded on each other. There's another one with like a baseball game that is like every time the girl is about to go into like why they like Sun-chan, they're like, it all started back at the baseball game, and I was looking at him from the east direction, except every time it's a different girl and they're looking at it from a different cardinal direction. It's like,
it's funny. That reminds me of like some of the jokes from Airplane. Like, that's some classic bait and switch comedy. I like that.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, there's a lot of that kind of comedy in the show where it's like, you thought this because this is a harem anime, and there's no way that we're original enough to make these jokes.
Yeah, so it just has a recurrent kind of like taking pot shots at you kind of joke.
Yeah, so it's like, you think that's how it's gonna go because that's how we set it up. But actually, this is how it's gonna go.
So I guess to kind of do what you did to me, I have a question for you, Matt.
Sure.
So most of what we've been talking about is kind of retreading just like the first episode, because
Yes.
a lot of those recurrent jokes and the, subverting expectations and everything like that is pretty solidly rooted in just, I mean, like, I watched the first 2 episodes and like
Right.
It was very clear in those. What makes this show like actually have lasting power throughout its whole series of episodes throughout the season? Like, I mean, repetition of jokes is good for a bit of time here and there, but like
Right.
what really makes this, as you say, a masterpiece? Not just the first few episodes, like what makes this whole thing worth that title?
Okay, so there's one. The whole concept here is that it starts out very much like that, and this is what I was going to get into. But so there becomes this concept that they discuss later on that our main character, like Joro, goes through. Because there's another main character that's introduced into the show, and his name is Hose.
Hose?
Just to go with like the whole flower metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Like that's. But
like that's his nickname, right?
yes, that's his nickname.
Okay.
But-
Christ.
But
Good.
it's just funny.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Can't believe it. But yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of like growing that Joro does through the show. He, no pun intended, I guess, with the gardening metaphor. But he basically starts to learn that, like, because he talks with this other main character, Hose, and he tries to I guess it's about midway through the show. He tries to like understand, like, first of all, I guess he tries to understand like like how there's more to girls than just like love interest, because I think like midway through the show he tries to create a harem, and then like that doesn't work. And then he's like, he tries to be like really nice to people, like, you know, kind of like he does in the first episode, but then like they like Pansy, the girl that likes him, she I guess she catches him like basically saying that's not like the way he should be acting, because she wants him to act like himself. So there's this kind of conflict in the middle of the show that like Joro is trying to he's trying to do things to please other people, but he's not doing anything to like please himself, sort of thing. And that's why they brought in the other main character, the other quote unquote main character, Hose, is because they wanted like a stereotypical harem protagonist to be next to him. That one that does everything for the girls, one that does, you know, someone that's just nice for being nice. You know, there's no like real meaning behind it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of to juxtapose next to Joro's like, him trying to do that in the past, but also like trying to realize himself that he's, I guess, you know, he's not actually like that. It's just an act. And it's not himself, and it kind of like throws off the whole dynamic.
Okay.
So throughout the show, it's kind of like it kind of feels paradoxical, I guess, in some ways, because it's like you're trying to you got a main character here that you're supposed to hate, but at the same time, like if we hate him for being like, you know, kind of mean to these girls, kind of being like a nice guy, quote unquote. Basically, it's kind of, I don't know, it's juxtaposed next to that other harem protagonist that we always see in every harem show, and nobody wants that either, because that's just horrible. Honestly, it's and it's kind of toxic in its own way, as I guess it was trying to depict that. Yeah, someone that's doing something that's not like trying to do it to get people to like them is no better than someone that's doing things that are being, you know, someone
just completely self-serving.
Yeah, it's not any better, actually.
Okay, I get you.
So I feel like the whole show is kind of like building that kind of narrative.
And so it's kind of a reflection on, or a look at, tropes of the harem archetype.
You could say that. I would say it's almost more of a reflection on how main characters are portrayed in harem anime, maybe more specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, there is a lot of like other subversive stuff in there, I think, that you could probably pin to like, oh, this is making fun of this aspect of the harem genre, but that's like it's more parody, I guess. It's more lighthearted. And this was more introspective about the main characters in particular.
Okay, all right. I can dig that.
I think those two elements combined are like what makes this show what it is. It's just got the comedy that a harem show really needs, that like original comedy actually. I don't even know if you call it original. It's just sort of subversive, like a parody sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also this like underneath like this, like there's like a story that they're building about how like the juxtaposition of the two types of main characters in a harem anime, or like what makes a typical protagonist any different from this one sort of thing.
Yeah, all right.
I realized I just talked for a really long time there.
No, but I think when it comes to meta shows, it like you kind of have to talk about them for a little bit longer than some other shows because it's trying to do a lot.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't believe I say this about some stupid harem show that literally everyone thought was just going to be nothing, but it actually ended up doing something, and I think that's really surprising.
I think those are your favorite
that's
shows,
not
aren't
at all
they,
what I
Matt?
would have expected.
Yeah,
They're the
like,
ones where you don't expect anything, and all of a sudden it becomes super meta, and you're like, "What the fuck? I love this."
Yeah, it really is. I really love these kinds of shows. Like honestly, I came out of this and I was like, you know what? There were some episodes that were a little bit slow, and like that probably could have been a little bit better worked. But overall, like, I mean, I really liked it. Like, I thought it was pretty. It did exactly. I felt like what they were trying to get across was the whole. Like, it definitely was very centered on our main character, juxtaposed against this other main character at the end of the day, and they definitely did a lot of building to kind of make that happen. So
All right.
that's what I think makes it a masterpiece. It was calculated. It may not have been the perfect execution, but it was pretty good, and it was funny, and I enjoyed it, and I feel like I got something out of it by the end.
Cool. Yeah, I would definitely say that. It's a little different from what we have as the canon of masterpieces, but I think that, it is a definition to change and evolve over time. So, honestly, again, even just what I watched from the first episode, I'm perfectly happy tossing it up there. Like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think that
it's a show that you'll enjoy. Like, it's a show that I think it kind of, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people probably should at least try to give it a chance. As long as you don't find the main character like absolutely appalling, which you probably will to some extent, but it's a ride. I love it. The comedy is in of itself is just top notch. So I feel like that was I don't know where to go from here, guys.
let's just that was a lot. Let's just decompress a little bit.
Yeah,
just
I would love to
breathe
talk about
in,
Beastars, but I'm going to
breathe
talk
out.
about As Long as He Is. So let's move on to something
okay.
else.
Okay. I watched Psycho-Pass 3 this season.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see.
Was it better than
somebody-
Psycho-Pass 2?
It's not a high bar to clear, dude. I'm just kidding. Psycho-Pass 2 has issues, but there's still some okay things that come from it. It's still pretty bad. I like Psycho-Pass 3. And I think what I like most about Psycho-Pass 3 is that it very much tries to establish itself as its own unique story within the Psycho-Pass universe. The first and second seasons really kind of try to focus on this idea of, justice within the world that the series has created. The Sybil system is a large techno conglomerate that exists to kind of essentially profile people and say whether or not, based on like mental states and psychology and numbers and shit, whether or not you are going to be good for this specific job, or whether or not you are prone to be a criminal, or whether or not you're going to be compatible with X or Y person for a partner. Like, every last thing is scrutinized within that system. And it looks to question, the benefits and the dangers of something like that. And the second season kind of suffers a lot because it tries to ask and answer a lot of the questions the first season already covered, and that's only part of why it sucks so much heinous ass. And the movie itself treads a bit of that as well. Like, it kind of talks about exporting that system to a third world country and kind of talking about how it's used for, like, systematic oppression and all that jazz. But the third season of Psycho-Pass really kind of strikes out on its own and more focuses on being an interesting crime thriller, focusing a lot on, like, the mistreatment of immigrants in a really xenophobic, futuristic Japan. And I think the fact that it takes such a different path than the rest of the series so far is what makes it so, like, refreshing. It keeps the series from getting stagnant, because as much as I like being in this world of Psycho-Pass, I really don't know how much I would have enjoyed yet another fucking entry in the franchise that is just trying to look at the same ideas over and over and over again. And so that kind of new coat of paint is what makes the third season just so fucking good. Like, it's still very solidly nestled within the world and the ideas that the original series set up, but it takes it and works to make it something that is very directly relevant right now. And I think that's very fucking cool.
I actually sorry.
No, you actually what?
Oh, I was just gonna say I actually just kind of like the fact that it kind of got away from the original, like it got away from the original idea of the series, but it also, like, stuck with it.
Yeah,
like I kind of like sequels when they kind of don't retread the same thing over and over again, because I mean, you got it. Like, you know, season 1, like, you had that idea, you did that idea, it's done almost. I feel like there's a certain level of, okay, but what else can we do with the same idea? And I feel like maybe that's the direction that Psycho-Pass 3 went.
Somewhat, yeah. Because, I mean, like, it's one thing if it's a show like Hidamari Sketch where you have 4 fucking seasons and it's the same thing over and over, and, like, that's a joke. But, you know, for something like this that is specifically, like, action-oriented and, like, thriller-oriented and is trying to, like, work with larger, broader ideas and tell a really interesting narrative story, having to, you know, deviate from that original safe path helps to make this something that is much more dynamic and interesting and enthralling.
Right.
And so it's very cool to see it take a turn here. Now, that's not to say that Psycho-Pass 3 is without issue, because, buddy, it's not. But I think one of the major points here is that Psycho-Pass 3 largely suffers from some pacing issues. Like, it's fucking weird, dudes. So Psycho-Pass 3 is 8 episodes long. Okay. Each episode is 45 minutes.
Okay.
Damn.
And so what you essentially
get,
you essentially get like a 16 episode series, which is like, it's what, 1 1/3 core or something like that. It's just one of those. It is a bizarre amount of time.
It's weird.
Now, like, the length of the episodes is not necessarily the issue, because honestly, for a show like Psycho-Pass, where it has kind of turned into a more, like, long-form narrative crime procedural thriller, it kind of works. It's like watching an episode of, like, Future Cop anime CSI or something like that. Very interesting. But the problem is, I'd say about the second half of the show, it starts bringing in so many, like, different intersecting, like, storylines and plot elements and such that just keep building and building and building up to the last episode. Like, we get to this absolute crescendo of shit that seems like it's about to burst, and then, like, it just kind of plateaus, and it doesn't do anything. It's like waiting for a beat to drop, and it's just, like, nothing. And part of the reason for that is, shortly after the third season ended, it was announced that there's a movie coming out as a sequel. So you essentially have a whole series, a whole season, essentially trying to lay the groundwork for a movie to try to cap off the story of it. And that, it just causes so much just unnecessary, just odd pacing stuff in the show. Like, I feel as though if instead of like, you know, a 1 1/3 core in a movie, if they had just got a full 2 core, I think this would have, you know, not been an issue. But the way that it has been set up is just it's really, it gets a little wonky near the end. I don't know, which is unfortunate. That's not to say it's not worth watching. If you've watched Psycho-Pass, if you've gotten through it up to this point, you really owe it to yourself to watch it, because it has great score. It looks fucking gorgeous. It has a fantastic cast of characters.
Also an incredibly interesting universe that just keeps getting deeper, I think.
Yeah. And again, like, I think it treads a lot of really important, you know, ideas that are very relevant to our current, you know, like, socio-political structure right now, especially in, you know, the USA and all that shit. It's very worth watching for that if you are, you know, caught up with the series. But, you know, I'm interested to see what the third movie pulls out, to see if it is able to kind of counterbalance some of the weird shit that happened at the end of the season. Just pacing and story-wise.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it kind of sounds like it just had some, like, pacing problems, and, like, the rest of it was okay.
Yeah, kind of. Like, it's very good. The story's interesting. I think a lot of the story seems, like, weirdly, like, truncated, just because they did not have the space that a 2-core series would, or that, like, it specifically had to curtail a lot of stuff to leave it for the movie. I don't know, man.
Okay, so
Yeah.
did it seem, like, weirdly edited? Like they kind of, like, were going to go somewhere with it and then cut that portion, or is it like just like they kind of just rushed through it? Like, what's the? I don't know if you can tell the difference.
Yes.
Or if that's relevant.
So I mean, like, it definitely doesn't feel as though there was more content and they decided to cut it to make a movie. It very much feels like there was always a plan for there to be a sequel film. But the fact of the matter is, like, so Psycho-Pass the movie came out after Psycho-Pass season 2. And as much as I'm just kind of about season 2, it was self-contained. By the end of season 2, there was no need for anything else. It didn't end on a cliffhanger. The series could have easily just, you know, cut off with that, and that was it. But, like, with Psycho-Pass season 3, there's so many, you know, hanging unanswered questions and through lines and stuff like that that are just completely unresolved. So I guess it's less like a pacing issue and more just that there was a lot intentionally withheld from the plot to make way for this other film that I just feel is completely unnecessary for it to do. But I'm not a production crew. I'm not involved.
Right.
In
I realized that was like a really hard question to answer. But thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard sometimes for series that, especially whenever you're writing a series, like, and you know that there's going to be a third act. It's very hard to write that second act and not make it like a just extreme cliffhanger. So it kind of reminds me of a Rebellion story for Madoka Magica, where they very much were expecting to continue the series and then just didn't. And so we're just ending in the second act. And so do you feel like that maybe that's kind of how this season is ending?
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and compare the way that Psycho-Pass 3 ended to Madoka Magica. That just feels like a weird comparison to make.
Okay.
In terms of, like, how the actual, like, story pacing went. I just, like...
But I mean, specifically,
again, there
that whole, like, cliffhanger, we expect you to buy the next thing, haha.
Oh, I mean, like, I don't know about that.
Okay.
Like, I feel like, you know, I would be comfortable with how season 3 ended if there wasn't any, you know, expectation for a movie coming up after that.
I see what you're saying now.
That's what I was worried
like,
about.
There's still, like, a lot of tension between some of our main characters that is weirdly unresolved. I mean, like, I would be miffed if we didn't have anything after it, but I'd be like, I mean, it's not the worst ending. I've seen much worse endings to a season.
Yeah, that's just what I was worried about, was that it seems like more of a cash grab instead of a, like, hey, maybe we'll just make a good season, and it has a little bit of leftover shit that we can then just kind of fill out later.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm not part of a production crew. I don't know if, like, deciding to make a movie is deciding to go for, like, a cash grab, quote unquote, or if it's just, like, trying to do a different kind of way to tell
maybe
the
it's
story.
got a different
I don't
approach
know
to
if
it. We don't. It's hard to tell. when
Yeah,
there's not
I
a
was
movie out.
mostly just wondering about, like, how you felt about it with the ending that you got for the season.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like, I mean, I don't hate the ending of season 3. With the knowledge that we have a movie coming up, I am a little bitter that we didn't just have a better ending to the season.
Should have just
That's
done an
all.
elongated ending.
But that's kind of the way that I
Since
feel
they done
about it,
elongated the
but-
series, I don't know.
Mhm.
That's weird.
Yeah, so I don't know. Again, 8 45-minute episodes. It's just like the weirdest structure.
That is a
but
weird structure.
Whatever. I don't know. It's fun. It's worth a watch if you are, lost in the sauce of Psycho-Pass. It does have an almost completely new cast. There's definitely some returning characters. So, I mean, like, if you don't mind being a little lost in some of the finer points, you could probably somewhat safely jump into Psycho-Pass 3 and not really have many issues. But,
You might as well watch the second season.
you don't really get the full impact of how good Psycho-Pass 3 is compared to the second season if you don't have that context.
It's like a logistical context. Like, okay, well, you made it through this one, so...
Yeah. My ambitious recommendation is to just watch the entirety of the Psycho-Pass series. But my more reasonable recommendation is just watch the first season. And if you like it, just keep going.
You can't quite understand the fall and travel through hell of Dante by just reading Purgatorio.
Yeah. It's about the journey.
It's about the journey.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sure is something. Thanks for sharing.
Sure is something. Matt, I really appreciate your consistent push for saying thank you for sharing. I really do feel like I'm a part of this group. I feel so very loved.
I actually am
and
feeling a little bit of
seen here.
sarcasm right now, but that's just me.
No, it's all good.
I'm trying to be nice this
Who's
podcast. I think I've been
next?
doing a pretty good job.
You have been. It's been a little weird, but I appreciate it. New year, new you. Good shit.
Yeah, this is not going to last.
Is Matt gonna be nice to
I
us?
didn't figure.
I literally just said it's not going to last. Listen
But-
up next time.
But Matt, New Year's resolutions.
Okay.
Look,
okay.
the only new
Okay.
resolution I made was to be a person.
That's true. You did. You did literally make that
Off,
resolution.
off topic, my dad actually liked that Twitter tweet.
Where you said you were just going to be a fucking person.
Yep, he
for the
liked it,
year.
and I was like, all right, Dad, well...
I didn't even know your dad's on Twitter.
I didn't know
Fucking
either.
mind blowing.
Yeah, you want to put him on blast? What's his handle? Can we go follow him?
Don't.
All right,
This isn't-
so
yeah.
don't
anyways,
dox me. Jeez,
Don't dox your
yeah.
dad. Like,
poor Dad.
I would like to talk about Beastars.
Okay,
Okay.
hopefully
Mostly
it wasn't a
because-
B-rated anime.
Oh my
Well,
god.
mostly because it's still today. It's not out on Netflix in our country, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for bringing this up. Hashtag fuck Netflix. All right.
I'm just
done.
making sure because
Yeah.
like I guess this will be a little preemptive then, and I shouldn't go into like too many spoilers or anything like that.
Nobody cares.
Um,
Everyone's already seen it, probably. That's gonna.
I mean, honestly, yeah, it's the best fucking furry show I've ever seen. It's so
How many
good.
furry shows have you seen?
Not
How
too
many
many.
fucking furry shows
I
have
guess
you
it
seen?
depends on what you define as furry. Because I used to watch like
Let's-
Rescue Rangers
okay.
on Disney.
Okay.
right.
So what's good about this show? I'm
Yeah,
I'm nipping this in the bud.
Thank you.
What's good about Beast?
I regretted asking the question as soon as I asked.
Beast-
Yes,
Beastars-
you fucked up.
Beastars is very much a character drama that's based in a very interesting world. Because it's this. Because I mean, the basic idea is like if you know what Zootopia is, you've got a good relative idea of what this type of world is. You have herbivores and carnivores and omnivores, and they're all living together, and they're not supposed to like act on their influences or anything like that.
They're all animals.
They're all animals, and
yes,
but there's a lot of like interesting dynamics between a lot of the different animals, and even within subgroups. Like one of our main characters, Haru, is a all-white bunny, and calico bunnies constantly bully her because she's not them. And so like there's a lot of interesting like subspecies kind of racism that goes on with that. But the main overall theme is like herbivores versus carnivores, which they use as kind of like a metaphor for racism. But then they also use it sometimes when it comes to carnivores and their like natural instincts to hunt and to be aggressive, as like a metaphor for anything between hormones to like puberty, to as well as like having a predilection towards violence, but then working against that.
Okay.
It's just really interesting and fascinating to see all of this happen. But then on top of that, just the individual character dynamics of each character is very interesting. The idea of B-stars, like the B-star, BEASTAR, is that this is a person within the certain academy, and this academy is like the most prestigious academy.
Wait, academy? This is a fucking school show? They're not office workers?
You fucking...
This is not a Gretzico?
I swear.
No, I'm not making a joke. I took one fucking look at the poster and saw Wolf Boy in a, fucking suit and tie, and I'm like, oh god. This boy is a salaryman.
He's also wearing suspenders, and the entire soundtrack is 1920s jazz.
Zach, did you not watch the first episode?
I haven't seen any of Beastars.
Oh.
I started with the manga, so I think that's where my predilection of just like, well, duh, and then I'm like, oh no, wait, no one else has read the manga. Yeah, no, it starts out in an academy, and in this academy is like the highest of the high people, and it's this big prestigious academy. But they have this person that's called the B-star. It's not like the class president or something like that. It's literally an award given to one individual student, regardless of race, gender, or year, that they represent the epitome of all animals.
That's interesting. Okay.
And so this is something that is constantly fought over. And especially when it comes between carnivores and herbivores, it's constantly fought over, because if herbivores win it, they can prove to carnivores that they aren't just prey.
Okay. And
they're desperate to do that. And so like you have these interesting dynamics between like Lewis, who is this deer, and he is the most aggressive of any of these characters, because he's like, no, I come from a background in which I literally was prey. I was being sold for food, and I will not stand for this. And then you have these other characters that are carnivores that want to have it because they just want to show that as a carnivore, I'm not just here to kill people. I'm a good person. And so there's a lot of warring between these two ideas. And then on top of that, you just have these individual things, such as like Haru is constantly called a slut, but it's because the only time that she's ever been able to actually feel that she wasn't just someone's prey is whenever she was being embraced by them. And so she's very promiscuous, but she's promiscuous only because it enables her some outlet to feel wanted and not as somebody's meal. And there's so many deep, complex ideas like that in this show. It's fucking great. It's a great show. And as dark, as horribly, horribly dark as it gets, I shit you not, they have a whole episode on a black market where there are herbivores that are literally like, here, $20,000 and you can have my pinky and you can eat it. It's a black market where they just sell pieces of their body. Like, it gets dark. But it's as dark as it gets. It intentionally does so many great things to make these characters stand out and to make them very gray and interesting and well-rounded. And on top of that, it also has some really funny jokes. Like, where... because they're usually organized by like four people to a quad, basically, like a dorm room. They have one where it changes between winter and spring, and all of the carnivores are in a quad together, and so they all just shave at the same time to get rid of their winter coats, and then they sell it to charity to get money.
That's weird.
And then they have the person that's in charge of the news organization is this like fucking what's his name from the it's not Daily Planet, the Bugle from Spider-Man, like Bring Me Pictures of Spider-Man.
I want my pictures, Parker.
It's that dude, except for he's like a tiny like 3-inch rodent, and he's pissed at all times. And he's like, I don't care if you have to break in backstage, get a picture of that deer. And then they like leave the meeting and they're like, man, he's really cute whenever he gets angry.
That's great.
It's so good.
I love that.
But yeah, it's such a fascinating show. And it does a lot of things that Zootopia just didn't really want to dwell on, because their main theme and their overall message as a movie, they had an 1.5-hour runtime, and they're just like, well, let's just deal with the racism thing, and then we'll deal with the other things like extraneously. Whereas this, where it's an entire series, they can delve into a lot of those really interesting metaphors and contextual ideas about different animals, but also about various different themes as they apply to humans.
Okay, I can dig that.
And
yeah,
it has a fucking great soundtrack. And on top of that, it has the best OP of this season, hands down. I will not argue this.
No, you're wrong.
You could show me.
I mean, you're wrong, but you are
anything.
entitled to that opinion.
You could show me fucking anything, and I will give it a very open-minded opinion. But the OP for this series is just amazing. It's a stop motion animation of several different characters within the show, and it has choreographed dancing and everything else. It's so good.
Yeah, okay, that's wonderful. You're wrong. I'm not going to fight you on this because, again, this is not the arena for that. But
I can at least argue that it's the most original and unique of the OPs.
Yeah, visually speaking, it's pretty fucking right.
I hope that this means...
Yeah.
I hope that this means that if we ever play AMQ with Kyle, he would never get the Beastars OP wrong. Otherwise, everything you just said is utterly false.
I don't think I ever would. When it comes to like jazzy and bluesy stuff, that shit's my jam, man. I ain't getting this mixed up with something else.
Yeah, I think Princess Principal's OP can kick its ass.
Yeah. It's not from this season, but yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna
think musically,
and it's
yes.
time for Sig.
But yeah. No, everyone, as soon as Beastars comes out in whatever country you're in, whenever it is available on whatever platform it is available on, please go watch it. Because there's going to be a lot of people that are really going to say, hey, it's that furry show. That is the most immensely horrible injustice against the show and like everything that it is doing creatively.
Yeah, it's like saying freeze that fucking yaoi bait.
Well, yeah. I'm glad you
and
brought
it's like, does it get horny? Yeah. Also,
okay.
I forgot to mention...
Well, thanks for that.
I forgot to mention a big thing is this is the best 3D CG that I've seen since Hoseki no Kuni, Land of the Lustrous. They do a very, very good job of making the animation incredibly well done and make it not look awkward. So
How can you say that when Wise exists? How dare you?
Oh my fucking god.
Okay, anyways, I'm done.
Okay, well, before you finish, I had a question, but now you just ruined it. So,
all right. Well, yeah.
Well, I'm still going to shoot it. So, okay, so to all those people that haven't seen it yet on Netflix, there's going to obviously be a lot of people that don't watch this for some reason or another. What is one thing you can say to those people to make them watch this show? I mean, I don't know what that thing is, but just highlight something that is...
If you're a non-anime fan, I would say if you liked Zootopia, I would introduce this to you as something better. But for people that are non-anime fans, that's going to be a hard one. If you want an incredibly intense and dark character drama, where you can see like the struggle of various different individuals in a world where racism is absolutely prevalent, I think this would be up your alley.
Okay. I think you said non-anime twice, but I think we got the idea.
But that's okay.
I might have, but yeah. If non-anime, Zootopia, but better. Anime, the other thing. The latter.
Okay. All right. Good. All right.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
Matt, you have one other show?
Yeah, I do have one other show. So
I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for you to talk about it.
Okay. I was like, I'm about to let you down.
Oh no.
So, okay. So, Assassin's Pride is probably like one of those shows of the season that like very few people watched, and
I mean, yeah,
it's also one that a lot of people like didn't like, for notably understandable reasons.
Well, I mean, even in the synopsis, there was a reason why I skipped the show.
Well, obviously, and it's pretty obvious.
The classism thing, yeah.
Oh, well, there's that, but there's also the other thing. But
you don't have super magic powers unless you're rich. That's okay. That's not good.
Okay, but that is a premise for a story, though.
Setting.
I mean, sure, but like
just because it's
something you don't like doesn't mean it's not a good setting.
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't go into Psychopaths and be like, but this is a techno-future.
This is about cops. I don't like cops.
I don't want to watch it.
I mean, that's not what I meant, though.
I don't like wolves. I'm not going to watch
the only thing that I knew about the show was that going in, it's very much about the nobility, and I had heard initially from, like, people that had seen the first episode that it was, like, very much, like, not necessarily addressing the classism thing, but obviously that may be entirely wrong. It was only the first episode, so I apologize.
I'm surprised that you managed to not hear about the other thing that you probably didn't. You probably would have been more upset if you would have heard about it.
To be honest,
hear about that.
I'm not on Twitter, so...
Well, I mean, nobody was talking about this show. I'm just saying that if you would have seen somebody that would have talked about this show, they wouldn't have mentioned the classism. They would have mentioned the other thing, which I guess we'll just address it, which is the fact that there is I'll say it's significant. It's like it's not a romance show, strictly, like, but there is a little bit of, like, this underlying, like, tone of, like, romance, and it's got, like, a teacher-student sort of thing going on.
That's, like, not to say that it's normalized, because no, we should never normalize that, but that's like one step below like the cis-con when it comes to anime. Like,
well, right. I'm just surprised that. I guess all I was saying was that you heard about the classism and that's the reason you didn't watch it, but that was not something you didn't watch. I don't know. Anyway,
I think the only context I have for that is I saw some fucking like mashup compilation of him just saying "My Little Lady" or something.
No.
See, that's why I was like, Kyle, you're mad about the classism thing, but you're not mad about this. That's the reason I was confused.
Known about it.
Well, that you should have known. You just said you saw people talk about it. I figured you would have seen something about that already.
Listen.
Okay. Anyway.
It was in passing. I'm sorry.
Okay, we are going fucking everywhere on this, Matt.
Okay. Sorry.
Why? Let's talk.
So let's start from the top. So this show, narratively, it's a good idea. Like narratively and the world building for this show, pretty good. They set up a really interesting universe with I would say the class system is really interesting. How they've got like this whole dynamic of magic. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm saying if they did it well, that's cool.
Well, the thing is the setup is good. The problem with this show was that I would like to say that they built up the lore surrounding like how the system works really well, but they didn't use any of like the world building mechanics that they built up to make it interesting.
That's unfortunate.
It's interesting, and it would have been a lot more interesting if they would have done that. The problem with this show, I think, for me, is the narrative is all over the place. The actual story, it literally feels like someone went through, like, you know how, like, if you're making, like, a video, like, you have, like, a cutter tool where you, like, take clips out of a video? Yeah. I feel like someone went through the last 6 episodes and, like, clipped random bits out. And, like...
Oh, no.
And, like, literally, like, the thought... And it's not like there's whole scenes missing or anything. It's like someone literally was explaining something at some point, and then they would they wouldn't explain it, and then everyone would act like they understood it. and I was like, did I just miss the explanation, or did they just like skip over it? And then it turns out they would just skip over it. And sometimes it'd be like mid conversation too. Like it would just feel like they jumped from one point to another. But that was something that felt like was happening with this show. Like someone was like short on time, or like almost like they forgot to put like cuts of the show in or something. It was just really weird, but it wasn't like badly animated or anything. I mean, it wasn't greatly animated, but it was like it was like middle of the road.
Reminds me of the original Tron movie, in which there are just certain scenes in which you're like, okay, that's cool. Can you explain the last one though? And then they just keep going.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was like. But the bad thing is that it was like there was important plot threads that like needed that information, which you eventually understood. It just felt like you needed more information to kind of like understand it a little bit better. But that was my biggest complaint about the show, honestly. That and the lack of like use of the world.
For the setup that it seems to have, that's kind of atrocious that it wouldn't use that world space.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like episodes in the show that I just felt were really like, they were really nice, like to kind of like offset like some of the darker parts of the show, or like some of like the action sequences. We get like a nice comfy like sequence of just girls being in school or whatever, but like it like that was all fine. It just felt like unnecessary, I guess, in the grand scheme of the show. I don't know. It does a lot of things that are like, I feel like it's like right there, like it's almost like getting into territory of like this show is actually like onto something good, because like you can see in certain scenes where they're like, you can tell that the main characters are like having a moment, and like you can tell that there's something big happening, and you're like, oh shit, that's like a really big deal. Like for example, our main assassin dude, Ku, you learn that he has a sister that's basically a vampire, which he's a vampire too. This is a vampire show, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. Anyway, what I was trying to say was that there's like a good moment, like where there's like a legit dilemma that's happening between him and his sister, where they're like, I had to like wipe her memories with my vampire abilities when she was younger because to like save her life, basically. And he's like, so I had to like make her forget the memories of me. And then he like has to go through this again, like later on in the show. This is spoilers, but whatever. No one's gonna watch this.
You're literally just telling me the plot to the prologue to Frozen, but go on.
But yeah, I think like there's just like this really good moment that was like actually like really good. And there's several of those in the show that I'm like, this could have been a good show if you actually had decent writing in all the other parts. Like you've almost like got something here. Like you're right there, and apparently, I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was very well put together, I guess. In the end, but yeah. I liked a lot of the aspects of the show. I didn't like the show as a cohesive whole, but that's part of the watching experience. I still enjoyed it. It wasn't like intolerable or anything. It's got some problems.
That reminds me of whenever we were going through what was that one show? At the End of the World, Will You Save Us?
Suka, which that's actually funny because I put that comparison to that in my notes, but
really?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was actually really
like
funny.
Suka was another one of those where like as we were going through it, I was like, this could have been genuinely quality, but for some reason it just keeps missing.
Yeah, so I feel like this has the exact opposite problem that Suka has. Like Suka actually had a world that was fleshed out, but then the narrative surrounding the world sucked. Yeah, this show has the opposite problem, where the narrative around the world is actually pretty good, but the world itself is not fleshed out, and it kind of feels
that's unfortunate.
it feels like it's empty, basically.
Yeah.
Like there's so much potential that was just lost. So that's the reason I put that in my notes, was that it was like a reverse Suka Suka. Actually, if you think about the characters, like the protag and the girl in that show, it's kind of like the same situation. Actually, the shows are really similar now that I think about it. Like, just I mean, there's like a whole like, I mean, because that was something I think one of us talked about in that show too, was that like age gap question mark. And besides that, like the show itself, like it's just a mess, but it's. I mean, it's just like some of the other shows we've seen. It's just different. It's got some narrative issues that's more pressing than really anything else.
Okay.
I think if anyone watched the show, that would be the first thing that they would be like, wow, this is just not well written. It's more like it's kind of well written, except you're missing about half of it.
Matt, let me pose a question to you then, because you posed a couple of, you posed one individual question to me that made me think a little bit.
Okay, sure.
If there was a spin-off of this series that actually explored the world, do you think that would be a success?
Probably not. It depends. Actually, a spin-off in what way? Like, are we talking about, like, same characters, but, like, a slice of life variation? Or are we talking, Or are we talking, like, focus on a different set of protagonist characters in the story?
Focused on a different group of people, same universe, maybe even possibly during the same segments of, like, events.
Okay, so you're talking about, like, a Raildex sort of...
a Raildex kind of thing, yeah.
If it explored the world more, I think that could be really interesting. And it probably would actually fix a lot of the problems if you took... So... There were actually like 4 characters in the show. There's the protagonist, there's Melita, and then there's like her sister. And then there's like 2 other characters from another school. So let's say that they take the 2 characters from the other school and they focus on them.
Yeah.
I think that would be a pretty interesting perspective on the story, because they actually come from a higher class background instead of the like building up. Like this show, we're outcasts in the story, and we're trying to build up to that noble level. So coming at it from that perspective, if you're coming at it already from that noble perspective, and you're trying to get a grasp on the world that way, that could actually be interesting. So if you did the spin-off like that, I think you might be able to grasp more of that world building in a more tangible way, and also be able to fill in the gaps of some of those details that we missed. So
yeah,
I think that would be actually a pretty good way to approach this story if they wanted to do something with this show, which I don't know if they will or not. But.
Yeah, who's to say? But I feel like, because obviously there's going to be the source, which is light novels and the adaptation of this. But like, I feel like that might be a good way sometimes that people don't always think about in the anime industry, is like coming at it from like, okay, yeah, the source has this story, but what if we just use the same world to do something else? And you don't usually think about that until they've already had like 2 successful seasons of a show, and they just want to do a spin-off to get people more interested in that.
Right. But yeah, I think that would probably solve a lot of the problems with the show.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, that was a good question. I didn't think about that. Thank you.
Anything else as far as the individuals?
Yeah, I think that we've all covered everything.
Yeah, we got everything.
Now for the main event. Stars Align. Man, freaking... I want to talk about Stars Align.
Yeah, Stars Align was a hell of a show this season.
Holy shit, is it a hell of a show.
So, wait a minute. Oh, we're talking about Abusive Parents, the anime?
Okay,
yeah.
I mean... I'll argue
there's
at least one pair of
There is
parents.
one parent.
There's one pair of parents.
Parents.
That are not abusive. And then there's a one parent when it comes to main protag that is not abusive.
Okay.
So we got those.
Okay. But in general...
in general.
It is bad family shit. The anime.
It's very much like take a whole bunch of people that are from broken families, put them together and find friendship and see what comes out of that. Like,
yeah. I don't know what it is, man, but the last few sports animes I've watched and really gotten into have completely hit me with this, like, haha, it's about sports, but guess what, bitch?
yeah,
You're going to get a lot more than you bargained for.
because right before this was like Run with the Wind with you, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, it is still, Run with the Wind is still very much, like, rooted in, like, it is a sports anime. I would, like, Stars Align treads such a weird space that, like, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's still a sports anime.
Yeah,
Like, duh.
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of the traditional tropes, like, you know, hey, we're doing soft tennis. Here's how you do soft tennis. Here's the rules. Here's this, that, and the other. And you learn a lot about sport. But,
And then you also have like the struggles of like an individual match, and then like we need to make sure we do this or else we'll get disbanded, kind of thing.
yeah, and I just, like, you have all those normal trappings of a sports show, but, like, the other half of it is just character drama and dynamics that are not really related to the sport in and of itself, which is wild because, I mean, it's stuff like, I don't know, fucking Haikyuu or Welcome to the Ballroom or, you know, like Yomusha Pedal or whatever the fuck else. Like, a lot of the character drama is still centered around the sport itself. But Stars Align is different in that a lot of it splinters off completely, and the sport is kind of just a thing that connects all these, you know, characters from, as you said, like,
Yeah,
different levels
the sport
of broken
becomes their
families.
escapism from all the other issues.
I mean, I don't know about, like, escapism per se,
Okay.
but, like, it's definitely something to serve as an anchor for them.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better way to put it. So I felt like
That is a better way to put it.
I felt like in this show, like, and this is something I thought about too, was that the sports segments and like the drama family segments, like, they're connected by the sport, right? Because a lot of the drama that happens within their families is connected by that sport, not like directly, but usually like cause and effect in some cases. So, I mean, our pro tag, for example, like Maki, he and, like, you know, his dad, like, that thing would have happened anyway, but that was more impactful to him because of the soft tennis club, you know, him joining that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Maki's abusive, you know, deadbeat dad breaks his, you know, racket, all that shit.
Right. Like,
Tsubasa, purple hair boys, like, dad fucking pushes him down the stairs because, yeah, essentially.
yeah.
Because he doesn't
Because
live up to
he's-
the reputation of his older siblings.
Well, because he's doing soft tennis and his other older brothers do soccer, and his dad doesn't view soft tennis as, like,
A
you
real
know,
sport
a
or
proper
something.
sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's any number of other things. I mean, like,
Well, you also
could
have that
pick
one
a character
mother.
and
Yeah, you have that one mother that is shitting on her child because the child says that he feels not like a dude. Like, that's fucked up.
let's see. Oh yeah. God damn it.
The non-binary character, I think he's also the manager, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that in a minute, and not to, like,
Yeah.
brush that aside. But the point I was trying to get at was that there's definitely, like, a sense of, like, separation between the two, which I don't know. It was kind of something I felt that was different than what I haven't seen a lot of sports anime, I'm going to be honest, but I felt like that was something different from my expectations of what a sports anime was, because I felt like they'd be integrated a lot more, but I felt like they were a lot more separated, and the sport was like an anchor for that.
Yeah, you know what? I
yeah.
think that's true, Matt, because I feel like there's a lot of sports anime that I've seen, which, granted, I'm not an expert in the field, but there are a lot of sports anime that if there is something going on in their life, they bring that onto the court, or they bring that onto the play field. And that wasn't always necessarily the case for some of these characters, because they kind of compartmentalized everything, which is a little bit more true to life, to be honest. For a lot of people that are going through these traumatic experiences, they're not going to just be like, oh, I'm depressed, so I'm just going to be depressed amongst my friends. They'll be like, oh, I'm depressed, but I'll put up a facade in front of my friends.
Although there was some degree of that, I felt as well.
Right, but that's also very
yeah.
true to life. Like sometimes it becomes too much to bear, and it absolutely impacts the way that you perform. But yeah,
I guess as far like, I don't know if I would call this show like quote unquote realistic. I feel like it's accurate, but I don't feel like it's realistic.
I feel like accurate, not realistic, is a good way to put it.
Because I feel like the point of this show is like accurate, right? Because I felt like a big part of the show is trying to just understand that, hey, like, you know, like when you're a teenager, like you're going through a lot of stuff, and you know it's a big rebellious phase. I guess a lot of people view it that way. So there's gonna be a lot of like conflict between parents and like what they're because they're changing too, right? Because the parents are trying to adjust to the fact that their kid's getting older, doing different things, changing, you know, all that, you know, discovering things about themselves. So it does affect the family as a proxy. But I feel like the unrealistic part, I guess, or the less realistic part is that, I guess
all these people are in the same club.
Well, there's that, but there's also the fact that I know some parents would probably jump to these extremes, but the fact that, I guess it is the fact they're on the same club, getting everyone, like, I don't know, I feel like you would have a couple of people maybe in a club like this that would have parents like that, but the fact that they're all together, I guess, makes it feel more contrived. I don't think that's a problem. I think that enhances the series in the right way. I just don't think it's realistic. That many people with that happening at once is, I mean, that's part of the show though, right? Like that's part of the drama of it, is that's the unrealistic part. It's meant to be unrealistic. It's meant to portray like a realistic setting though. That's all I was trying to say, is that it was accurate, and that's the reason I used the wording that I did. It's accurate but unrealistic.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, because this show is very much like, hey, let's address these individual problems, and we'll have a character for these individual problems. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, if you pick and choose any club at will in a realistic setting, that this would occur. It's just that they're specifically writing it this way so that they can address all these problems within an art form.
I think that the show does a really interesting job addressing all these issues because, like, I think in a lot of series that are working with a lot of like young adolescent kiddos, we will have maybe like one or two things that come up about this, you know, just as like, you know, one specific character's arc. But I think Stars Align is really interesting in that it decides to just fucking like go whole hog and fully lean into that by being like, actually, that's going to be the point of the show.
It's amazing because, how like, open it is. Yeah,
and it's I think it's interesting in that I think the story that Stars Align tells does not have to be about Soft Tennis Club. So like, take for instance all of the family drama and shit. This could easily be about a bunch of boys in an after-school literature club.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it could be just about, like, one mom is being super overprotective and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe they're having my boy read all this shit in class. Or it could be about basketball, like, oh my god, I cannot believe they're having my boy do all these sick jumps and flips.
Or even like a spelling
ball
bee. I can't believe that they have him practicing on Sundays when he's supposed to be resting. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think the fact of the matter is, like, this is really a family and adolescence drama series that is kind of contained within a sports show. And I think it's such a really interesting move to take with this because, you know, I feel as though you could make this just a basic, like, you know, a bunch of friends at school going through family issues. That would be interesting. However, I think that would be a lot. Like, if that was the sole focus of the show, that would be so consistently draining to watch.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm sure for some folks, they'd sit back with popcorn and be like, oh, yeah, let it unfold, let it burn.
You get another version of Scum's Wish if you did that, basically.
I was literally about to say, that's kind of how we felt about Scum's Wish.
God, yeah. But so, like, the really interesting, like, light parts and inspiring parts of a sports anime that they put into this with the whole light tennis focus is soft tennis, not light tennis. Good God, soft tennis. I think it's very cool to see how it balances it out and gives it a very interesting sense of context for how it will tell this story. Because I can see any number of ways that it would have tried to address these issues of all these different characters in such a way that would have just been like way too much or would have just totally fallen flat. And I think the balance they struck just fucking worked. Like time and time again, it worked.
Yeah,
for me,
anyway. I think the contrast between like there's a word for that, not the contrast, but what I'm trying to say is the contrast between the sports and the drama sections, like it blended together well. The dichotomy, maybe that's yes. The word.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it worked really well together. Like, cause, like, yeah, watching drama can be really draining, as it was when for those who've seen Scum's Wish, like it's a lot, and it's a lot if you have to watch that week after week. I appreciate the fact that we've kind of like got the balance here. This anime is definitely balanced in that way. And I can definitely appreciate that. It's actually one thing I really liked about the show was that it just felt right. Like even though it did get dark, it also got really uplifting. And I was like, this is perfect. Good blend.
Yeah.
And I also love...
I
okay, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, like, I mean, there was a... Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of pretty gnarly shit that happens in this between, really like, dark. An abusive dad or, like, a mom walking out on her kid and divorcing her father because she just does not want to deal with this second kid of hers.
Yeah, because she hates the kid. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, or, like, a like, plotting mastermind mom that looks to, like, plot every little last thing. Like, there is a lot of dark in it. But, man, like... watching these dumbasses get in a circle and just start like hooping and hollering and just like oh and just like doing a little like dance around in place in
grasshoppers.
Yeah, it's delightful and it's so nice to see these kids have like a sense of community, but
yes.
Amongst one another, whereas they clearly do not have this kind of support system at home. And it's very nice to see that sense of like hope even injected into it.
I actually was thinking about this right before we started recording the podcast, because when it comes to this, like the main thing that keeps these people together is that they have this sense of community and camaraderie between these individuals on this team and also just their extended friends group whenever it comes to like the girl that always shows up at their games or
the absolute goblin. I love her.
She's so wonderful. I love her so much. Or their manager. Like, when it comes to these individuals, it doesn't matter, like, what issues they're dealing with. They are there to support them. And it's that group that is able to make it through these insanely terrible hardships that these individuals are facing.
Right. Mm-hmm. But especially what Kyle was talking about earlier, just to kind of circle back around. I think that the whole scene with the manager and Maki, like, discussing, like, the whole gender thing... Like, I thought that was, like, that sense of, like, hey, I haven't really talked to anybody about this, but, like, just kind of listen for a little bit. And then Maki's like, yeah, I feel you. Like, I kind of get that,
Yeah, the fact that he was absolutely supporting and open to his other individual, his friend, made it so that this character could actually, like, feel that they were worth something, that those troubles did not necessarily have to represent who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing. I absolutely love that. And I love that that's a consistent thing. To the point where even on the court, they'll horrifically lose a game. And then these kids will be like, hey, but you know what? You scored here, here, and here, and you can learn from this, this, and this. Like, you did a good job. That's so good. And the fact that even whenever you start getting into the last episodes, in which they're going whole hog, like... Let's fucking destroy. Let's do as much as we can and succeed as much as we can. Even if they lose, they're like, you know what? But I had fun. I did my best, and that's what matters. That is such a positive message. The fact that you don't have to
Yes.
have wins and losses, and that's what matters. The fact that you can have just doing your best, and everybody recognizes that you did your best, and everybody loves that.
Well, that's also very different from the tone that was at the beginning of the series. Well, not different.
Yes.
I would say it's reflected differently. So, at the beginning of the series, that wins and losses, like, they still didn't matter to them. But
Yeah.
the reason why it was frustrating was because, like, nobody was putting in the effort, right?
Right.
And so a big part of the series was, learning, if you put in effort into something and you're like actively trying, it can actually like change your perspective on it if you're actively doing it for a good reason, like, or if you're actively doing it to enhance yourself and not just, you don't care if you win or lose because it doesn't matter. That's different than, you don't care if you win or lose because you're going to gain something from it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
It's very different. Like, even though it's the same thing that's happening, it's a very different mindset. And I like that mindset shift over time.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, they definitely still were approaching this as, we have to win a game at this tournament or our clubs are getting shut down.
But that happened in like episode 10, which is so cool to see like episode 11 and 12 dedicated to something that is not that. Just to drive home
what I'm
that
saying,
point of like
what I'm
wins and
saying
losses
is
are
like
everything. Sorry.
Yeah, like, I mean, that was it was still a major focus to this whole thing because they're like, well, we need to win this game, but it evolves beyond that. Not just in the last couple episodes, but I mean, like, even at the midway point, it's kind of like you said, they learn to just, love the thing itself and learn from it and grow themselves. And so, yeah, by the end, even though they do win a game, and that's very cool and all that jazz, when Maki and Toma are, kind of facing off against the two Prodigy brothers, they're kind of like, well, you know what? We're down some points on this one. Our strategy should just be to have a good time. And they're like, you know what? Hell yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, because at that point it was like the bonus round, like they said. But
Yeah.
at the same time, they still didn't give up because they're like, well, we already had a game one, we're done, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They didn't
like,
approach it from that mindset in the beginning. Is all I was saying.
Their mindset was, let's have a good time by doing the best that we can possibly do, and as long as we do that, whether we win or lose, we've done what we could, and we should be proud of that.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
guess
it's so cool that carried throughout, I would probably say like halfway through the series up until the end. This idea of like everybody was in on this, of just like, even if we lose, and they lost a lot of times, this was a fucking We Are Marshall movie kind of event here, where it's like, we're gonna lose a lot, but you know what? It doesn't matter because we're here for each other, and that's fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And I guess, like, bottom line, it's just a really solid drama, slice of life, coming of age sort of
coming of
series.
age is the word I'm looking for.
I don't know if I would say slice of life as much as like drama and coming of age.
Yeah. It's really great. And we were robbed of a second core, which is
we would be
wicked
remiss if we
unfortunate.
did not mention that, especially because of just the massive cliffhanger that is the last episode in this series.
Yeah, that was.
It's kind of the.
I was like, I kind of wish there was a second season.
Yeah, we literally have the lowest of the low when it comes to drama-wise where these characters are. Because you have this character that is dealing with the divorce of a parent who specifically is divorcing. She specifically told over the phone because she hates that character. And then then you have this abusive father that like the main character is finally deciding to do something physically dangerous about. And then you have all these other characters that are dealing with all these other problems that are only halfway like healed. And so like the fact that that's our episode 12 in a 12 episode series, and the only reason it came out was because the people that were in charge of it were like, it doesn't seem that popular, so they just canceled the last 12 episodes. That's fucked up.
From the context I have, I'm not like, again, I'm only working off of I think most of us are working off of like secondhand reporting sources.
I think
Right.
we're
Like Twitter and such, and a few articles here and there. But the basic gist I understood was that while the anime was like more than halfway through development, I think the production team,
Yeah,
or,
the
like,
production
executive
committee,
team
the people
behind
that
it,
fund things.
right.
yeah, essentially said, "Hey, you all actually are getting a one core," and so they were kind of so far in that
I think the director and the
they-
writer said, well, we don't want to scrap it and start over because that's a bunch of not wasted effort. I guess that's a bunch of effort that people shouldn't have to go through because of
Right,
a
and
planning
it
mistake.
would-
right, yeah,
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it would end up being trying to like complete a story in 4 episodes whenever like you really only have enough script for 2.
Yeah, so it'd just
Right.
be worse. It'd be a worse overall product. So,
Right.
Mm. Because I mean, like, the director himself took to Twitter and said, like, yeah,
Yes.
this is what happened. This kind of sucks shit. I'd really like to finish the story in some way, shape, or form, but
Yeah.
who knows if that's going to happen.
That was one of the sources that I saw was directly from the director, in which he stated, yeah, the only thing that we could do was just say, well, we'll just go out with the 12 episodes we had because we don't want to change it and make it a worse product. And so they just ended it with the 12 episodes that they had, which were intentionally supposed to be a halfway point in the series.
right. That was supposed to be a 2-week
Yep.
break, basically. You know,
Right.
You get the next episode. Which good planning on their part because that would have been a pretty good 2-week break point. But
Yeah, I would have.
And to be honest, it works in their favor now because they did not sacrifice their image for the show. And so whenever people are like, yo, what the fuck? Why is it a cliffhanger? They can suddenly understand why it's a cliffhanger and be like, give us the last 12 episodes.
right now, I think you're going to get a lot more people rallying behind that. In a way,
Especially with how good of a show this is.
yeah, it was pretty popular.
Yeah.
I went through the Stars Align like hashtag for a little bit. There was a lot of people talking about the show. Like I was actually really surprised.
Astonishing.
So-
Yeah, I would be surprised if that amount of backlash that we see is not also present in Japan.
It probably is. I couldn't. I remember seeing some tweets in like Japanese, but I don't remember. Like I couldn't read them, so who knows?
Well, the
But-
director even started. Well, but also the director even started up in his link of tweets where he was talking about it, stating, "Here's a page you can go to go ahead and say, please let us do the last 12 episodes."
Yeah,
So there is a crowd-funded effort to be like, no, please
there's
let us finish
there's
the
definitely
series.
support for it. Absolutely, I
Yeah.
read an
Yeah.
ANN article. I think Frogkin wrote it, and that she was talking about how basically how there's like it was just kind of like an editorial like news thing.
Yeah.
But it was about like how the director is trying to get support for a second core. And probably a lot of people will actively support it. Like this thing could actually happen. Like I actually believe it. Unlike a lot of like second season hype.
Right, and I
Second
think,
season win
Yeah.
stuff.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's so recent, so new, but because it's just the end of this season that this is happening, but also because this is a show that deserves it. Like, there are a lot of other shows that have deserved it beforehand, sure, but some of that backlash doesn't come until much later. Whereas this is a perfect mixture of, like, this is just happening now, and on top of that, you have this show that is just really, really good and is becoming really, really popular. And so there are a lot of people asking for it.
I think escaping the context of the show a little bit here, but I think what really, I think this is actually a really good thing for the anime industry. Even though I know it sounds like that's kind of a weird thing to say, I think it shows how much that it's the people caring about the industry and it's like how its production is handled. I think it's a good thing. Based just crap, I just completely lost what I was gonna say. Sorry, hold on. What I was trying to say, basically it's a good thing because they're like, yes, this would have been something we learned after the fact, like 3 years ago. But the fact that the
Right.
anime industry is now so involved with its fan base and like people are interested in what the anime industry is doing as like
yeah.
people instead of just like shows. I think that's
Mhm.
shown as an anime community, it's kind of like shown that we actually care about that side of it too. So I think that, yeah, this wouldn't have happened 3 or 4 years ago because we wouldn't have known about it, because if a director said something, nobody would have cared because nobody would have known, you know? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I understand. Like, we're kind of at a certain specific point in time where, like, that divide is kind of gone, where you can, you know, sort of, for better or for worse, reach out to folks behind these production teams and such, and the folks that are actually, like, working on this stuff. You know, we've clearly had cases where that's led to a lot of, like,
you know, can't...
hostility
Yeah.
and bad shit towards folks. But there's also cases like this where it's like, hey, this, you know, director of the series has a public platform to reach out specifically to the folks that care about this stuff, and they can engage with
And a lot more...
and that's really cool.
A lot more people care about that part of it more than ever, I would say. So,
I mean, a great example of that is like looking at the Animator Dormitory project, in which like the anime community specifically goes out of their way to donate money to make sure that people get housing and schooling in their first couple of years in the anime industry.
Like, that is such a big thing now.
That is a huge thing, and that's very true. Like, this is one of these things where the anime community just clearly shines and shows, hey, there's something that's genuinely good. Let's support it. Whether it's the devs, the animators, like whether it's the... Sorry.
What is this, the game industry?
I'm sorry. I just got off
Come
of
on
work.
now.
I
Your
got off of
Matrix
work
is
like
glitching.
a couple of hours ago. Whether it's the animators, the artists, or whoever that is in charge of this project, supporting them and helping them to make sure that good things come out of this industry, that's great. And that good practices come out of this industry. Instead of just what we have seen for so long, which is the same issue for this series, is that some multi-business corporation or multi-business like group was in charge of deciding the fate for an anime, and they said, well, it's not getting the views that we want, so we're just going to cancel it.
Well, it's more than that even. It's just that, like, if this would have happened, like, a couple years ago, we wouldn't have known about this until probably just now. And it would have been like, well, that's what happened to this anime that aired 4 years ago. And then we would have been like, well, we can't do anything about it now. You know?
And that's the benefit of the current situation that we find ourselves in, as far as...
That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, social communities and everybody, like, and the communication that has come out of this between... the actual people that created the show and the people that enjoy the show.
Just a lot more awareness in general of what's going on in the industry, which definitely a lot of people, a lot of big names in our community have really helped with that in the past couple of years, which is, it's nice to see that that's actually coming to fruition. Finally, even though it's under like a bad circumstance, it's actually good that this is happening. You know?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a bad circumstance to showcase the good of this community. But sometimes also there's just a good situation that causes a lot of good that comes out of it, just as like donations and funding and all that.
Right. But yeah, sorry, we got off topic there, but
we did.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. And I think that's very true, and I think that that's something that we really need to see as far as like the history of what this will be, because like not even like less than a year ago, we have the whole situation around KyoAni, which is horrible and devastating. But you also saw how beautiful it was to see animators and the community at large come together to support like good practices and good people in the community. Like, that's fantastic. And I think this is another wonderful showcase of this for Stars Align. And outside of the show itself, this is something that we would be remiss if we did not mention.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For sure.
We definitely covered it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
we definitely covered
that's the backlogger's take. All right.
Wrap it and ship it, boys. We got a good one.
Yeah. All right. For once, we actually have a good take. Okay, is that anything else about Stars Align?
No, I don't really have anything else as far as that goes.
Nah, like, great show. Very interesting way to address these kinds of issues.
Love all
Definitely
of the characters.
got robbed.
I will say, it rubbed me the wrong way the student council president presented things, which is kind of the basis of the entire show, is that like, hey, we're going to disband you because you're not doing anything. But specifically her like words and intention were because you're useless and you'll never be anything else. And that rubbed me the wrong way because like the show kind of proves and shows that like, hey, if you just like give out a helping hand, people that you think are useless will actually do something.
Kyle, I think that was the entire point of the
that's
show,
the point.
though.
Literally, that was the entire point of the show. But here's the issue: is that even by episode 12, the student council president has not been shown this. The only resolution is she's like, all right, you did something so your club can survive. But her philosophy has not been disproven.
I'm willing to forgive this because it looks like something they were going to delve into and then didn't get to.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I was going to say.
I think a lot of the narrative problems I'm just going to debunk to that. Unfortunately, because that's the only thing I can do.
Right. I just wanted to bring it up because it's something that even irked me in episode 12. But yeah, it's also understandable because there's a bajillion other things that irked me because I was like, but we don't have enough episodes and I want these good boys to end up with good endings.
Yeah. All right. So, anything else or are we good?
Yeah, is there any other show that you might want to throw out there that you may not have finished?
Babylon was great and then turned into hot garbage, and I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay.
But
oh man, okay.
To go from a political thriller that was very interesting in the first episode
to a political snoozer.
to
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just go on. Bad joke.
the worst. I mean, like, to go from, like, legitimately interesting first episode to, like, the current, like, the most recent episode that came out, was, like, focusing on, like, the political issue that started in the first episode has reached, like, Canada or some shit, and we're in the United States now, and it turns out that, like, the fucking president of the United States was some nerd ass that met his wife on EverQuest online, basically, and like she's
what happened to this
fucking,
show?
Like, she's just a smoking hot supermodel, and like, you know, he's kind of nervous, and they go out on a date, and he's like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go, and she fucking slaps him, is like, what? You're this dude that completely revolutionized how this game was played, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna end the podcast mostly because that sounds like garbage, and that doesn't sound like the same show I watched. So, not gonna ask questions. Gonna leave it there.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna follow up on it. I'm not going to entertain any questions. I'm done talking about Babylon. It's hot garbage.
Before you end the podcast, Matt, I do want to point out one other anime. And by anime, I mean something that is not an anime.
No. All right, we're ending the podcast. We're done.
No. Give it to me. Give it to me.
No. All right. See you guys next time.
No.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. As always, you can find all our podcasts, articles, videos, etc. at thebackloggers.com. Our intro and outro song is The Bear by Shell on the Pit, who you can find on Spotify and Bandcamp. And we'd love to hear from you all in the comments on our site, on the podcast platform of your choice, or by just chatting us up on Twitter at _backloggers. So pull up a log, stop in for a bit.